Welcome to the third Hump Day Huddle here on the Horns Illustrated YouTube channel. I'm Ryan Hopper. I'm a news reporter in Corpus Christi. For those of you who didn't catch our first episode, but a graduate of the University of Texas, proud graduate of the University of Texas, as is my co-host, Joseph Duffy. Joe, take it away.
Yeah, glad to be back. Talk a little bit more at Texas Longhorn football. I always hate the bye week. Always hate it when it comes rolling around. Nothing to critique, but also nothing to watch. There's nothing else no fight song get to hear, no March Grandioso, no Eyes of Texas. It's sad. So glad to have it come back in full force, but on the road this time.
Yeah, the March Grandioso is the T E
EX.
X.
I love that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Always a
Yeah,
fun one.
we know all of you know how to spell
Yeah,
Texas.
we don't want to do the whole thing
We'll
right there.
save you the time there. So huge matchup for the Horns next week, heading into the swamps of northern Florida to Gainesville, which if you haven't been to Gainesville, there ain't much around Gainesville. It is a college town, middle of farm country, lots of cows, more cows than you would have thought. Anyway, not much there to face the Florida Gators. First trip to Gainesville for Texas, I think I heard in 6 or 7 decades, something ridiculous, something crazy that may have been a new realignment matchup. I'm getting it confused for, but they have not played very many times all time. But first, as we're recording Tuesday night on the opening night of the MLB playoffs, I introduce people to Joe sometimes as meet the future voice of the Texas Rangers, Joseph Duffy, not just because he's a great play-by-play man, but because he loves baseball. Joe, who do you have making and winning the World Series?
Well, I appreciate the introduction, and that's some high praise that I really love from a guy like Ryan Hopper, who I love as a person, love as a broadcaster. Um, it's really tough. I feel like these games today, or the games that we have seen on a Tuesday as the postseason is broken out, have been so close. It's any man's ball game. I think it's really set in stone at all. But if I could put out a prediction, I really think it'll probably be. I think the Padres can find a way to win the pennant, and I think
Interesting.
I'm really rooting for the Padres. They find a way to get hot. I love Mike Schilt. He's one of my favorite managers in the league. His story is awesome, being a guy who never really played in the majors. But I think that the Padres can find a way to have a date. I hate to say this with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Why do you hate to say that? I thought you were about to, me and all the viewers thought you were about to say, I hate to say this, but the Yankees.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'm sorry, but I don't like the Blue Jays as a Rangers fan. There's a little bit of
Wow.
history there,
Oh, the
unfortunately, from the 2010s.
Batista bat flip.
I'm never letting it go.
Oh,
Sorry.
wow.
Toronto people may
Oh,
view them
holding
as
on to
the
old wounds. Wow,
yeah,
Joe.
yeah. I'm not the guy you
Wow.
want to look up to when it comes to holding a grudge.
Man. Wow, wow. So you're hoping them being the only international team that there's a tariff on those runs then.
Maybe, I guess.
Wow. Wow.
Padres,
I
they're
think I
gonna
think
they're gonna
most
get it
people,
done.
that's a hot take because I feel like most people would want Toronto. They don't win much. They're
Yep.
they're repping a whole country. It's kind of like the Raptors in 2019. I feel like the vast majority of us were cheering for the Raptors that year, but we didn't have that Jose Bautista backflip from a decade ago, Joe. You still holding on to that?
Yeah,
Wow.
holding on, man.
Wow.
Stinks.
So for me, it's October, one of the best months of the year, all these sports going on. I have a team from y'all's division, Joe. Give me the Mariners to win their first ever World Series title. They got Naylor at the deadline. They got Eugenio Suarez. Find me a deeper rotation than the five guys that they have. They have plenty of depth. You can start four of them, have one guy as a long reliever or emergency bullpen type guy, always critical in the playoffs. And I think they're going to get some clutch hitting and their sneaky good defense. Not to mention the big dumper, Seattle, first World Series in franchise history. You can book it. I have them beating the Phillies. Now, I also wanted to ask someone who knows absolutely nothing about baseball and frankly, absolutely nothing about sports. Joe doesn't know this, folks. I asked my girlfriend for her bracket by sending her a picture of just the team logos in a bracket. So some of these, she doesn't even know the team. Okay. And she has a Yankees Phillies World Series. So not a very
Yeah,
juicy
not
take.
crazy. Not
Not a
crazy.
crazy take, very in bounds. I know the Yankees lost tonight. But here is the funny part, Joe. You know who she has facing the Phillies in the NLDS? The team
Hmm.
she calls baseball glove because she didn't know what team it was.
Oh, the
She
Brewers.
she didn't know the Brewers. She just put on a sheet baseball glove.
It's
So
one of the most creative logos, I
I
have
thought
to
that was
say.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Baseball
So
glove.
baseball gloves. So root for the baseball gloves. I think it'd be their first ring in their history, I believe,
It'd be
too.
awesome for the Brewers to get there, but
Yeah.
I just don't
See
trust it.
Benny slide down the slide in the World Series. That'd be electric.
Yeah. A lot of teams that could be getting their first World Series potentially in this entire field. Some teams that are trying to make their first World Series ever. We haven't seen the Brewers do it in decades, but the Mariners could possibly
Yeah.
make their first ever World Series if they clinch a pennant. So who
And
knows?
then Yankees, Boston. Like Joe and I delayed the recording of this just to watch the end of that. Tremendous. Anyway, this is a football podcast. You guys are here for football. Moving on, Texas at Florida in the swamps of Gainesville. Joe, if you've looked at it, tell me. But I wanted to have you guess the spread and the over under of this game.
I think I saw the spread. I haven't seen the over under. I think the spread was like 7.5 or something for in Texas's favor.
I just saw on ESPN bet Texas minus 6.5, 6.5 point
Oh,
favorite.
okay.
Very reasonable, I think, given the quality of these two teams and, home field advantage working for the Gators. Here is the real shocker, though, Joe. The over under, mind you, this is not an NFL game, it's a college game. The over under is 41.5 points. That is very
Wow.
low for a college game. So that tells you two things because they don't call the bookmakers the wise guys for no reason. They are very confident, as am I, and I assume as you are, Joe, in both of these two defenses. These are two elite defensive units, even if Florida's top line numbers may not show that because they've been on the field because of their putrid offense for the vast majority of their three losses. And then Texas, I mean, 7.8 points per game, no matter who you're playing. That's nasty. That speaks for itself. But also, I think the real story here, Joe, I want you to comment on this. They don't have faith in these offenses. I mean, you have a banged up DJ Lagway seen in a boot. Status, I believe, is uncertain for this game. And then Arch in the offense has not been clicking against legitimate FBS teams. So, Joe, your thoughts on the number and these offenses?
Well, I guess that makes sense when you put it like that. It's a hectic environment in the swamp in Gainesville, but also the fact that you have a very iffy Texas offense traveling on the road for their first SEC game. By the way, they're the last team to not play an SEC game, which is kind of weird at this point because they've basically been sitting around watching teams play
Yeah.
conference matchups as they've started with four straight non-conference matchups. Of course, they opened the season losing to Julian Sand and Ohio State and the horseshoe, but then you play, some gimme games right after, and you don't really have as many challenges as other teams in the conference. So I think this is a great first look for this Texas team because, like Steve Sarkisian was saying, there is no, you're not afforded in this conference, an off week or a week that says, man, we don't have to go hard this week. So when you have a DJ Lagway who is banged up and you have him hosting the Texas Longhorns, who many people think this should be a very good win for them to get back on track offensively in the conference. What an opportunity for the Gators and Billy Napier because they have been playing very hard these past 2 weeks against LSU, or past 3 weeks actually, against LSU, losing against Miami, one of their heated rivals, been losing some nail biters in some games that they didn't really compete in well offensively. But I think that's very fair for them to have that over under just over like 41, as you were saying. I think that's very much fair. I do think that Texas will have a slow first start, sadly, first half. I think they have a slow first half, but I do think they'll come away with this win, and we'll break it down in the podcast a little bit later.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, this Florida team, looking for answers, frankly, at in the offensive realm. I mean, 16 points against USF, dropped 10 on LSU, and could only muster 7 against Miami. That's an average of 11 per game. It's just not looking good in Gainesville after, and I talked about this on a previous pod, you know, growing up a Gator fan because of my stepdad and following this program, there was more optimism at the end of last year than there has been since the shoe throwing incident of
Marco
2020.
Wilson. Marco
Marco
Wilson.
Wilson. I mean, they won 4 straight conference games, including eliminating Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, who look very good this year, by the way, from the playoff, winning the rivalry game against LSU. They had all that momentum. It was the most positive vibes I had ever seen with an 8-5 program that wasn't a little program. And then to start like this, I mean, Joe, the calendar is turning to October, and I get that some of this is because of scheduling. I get it. The calendar is turning in October, and the Florida Gators, a program that has produced 3 Heisman Trophy winners, 3-time national champions, have not beaten a team in the FBS. The calendar is turning to October, Joe. Their one win is against the University of Long Island. Was not familiar with the good folks of the University of Long Island. My goodness. Now, granted, they are getting help coming back in the form of Dallas Wilson, former 4 borderline 5-star recruit, depending on which service you ask, out of Tampa, Florida, wide receiver. That's going to be a huge help for Lagway on the outside, working up against the likes of Manny Muhammad out there. How big of a boost do you think that could be for them, Joe? And they are in the friendly confines of the swamp.
I do think that's a fair boost for sure to talk about. I do think for this Texas defense, though, um, I don't think there's going to be a question for them. They show up regardless. But this Florida defense for sure is very salty, and they haven't really been they've been challenged, but I think that they've even proven that they're like, unstoppable, that they can't be moved. We saw this against Miami, who is granted a top 5 team. They played them how they should be played, right? They put up the points they should have necessary in the fourth quarter at Hard Rock Stadium. This defense is not infallible. So they're really good. They're really good through 2.5 quarters. I don't know if they're great consistently through 4 quarters. There's only so much a great defense can do sometimes. So I do think this Florida Gator defense will show up for sure in the first quarter and a half. It just depends on how well this Texas offense will play in the red zone specifically, which has been the Achilles heel of the Steve Sarkisian era the past 2 seasons. I trust that they'll find a way to adjust, but I do think they might have some troubles with this front 7. And some of these corners, by the way, for the Gators are really good. One of them being, Jordan Castell, a DB who leads them in tackles, at least the secondary in tackles. I do think they have a really good defense, but I don't know if it'll be enough in the long run against the Steve Sarkisian offense.
And if you'll remember, because I think football is such a momentum game, and like Joe and I each played it at the high school level, when a sideline is buzzing, the team plays different. And when the sideline is dead and body language is bad, the team usually negatively suffers. And I feel like with this Gator defense, why I'm a bit concerned about this game for Texas is this is by far and away the best defense with plenty of 4- and 5-star talent on that defense. Billy Napier had a great recruiting class off that momentum from last year. Great guys back there. Arch has not faced this since Ohio State. He's going into another hostile environment. They are going to be able to compete with size in the trenches to an extent with Texas, more than most teams. And when you look at the vibes on the sideline, Joe, what was that defense supposed to do at Hard Rock when your offense is less than 50 yards in the first half? The vibes are
Exactly.
down. Eventually, you're going to crack. I
hmm
guarantee you, maybe not guarantee you, but I would assume the Gators offense will show some signs of life in the first half, especially with Dallas Wilson coming back. And just so everyone's clear, Lagway is playing and did practice on Tuesday. So he
Yeah.
will play.
Yeah, off the bye. I mean, I expect some juice returning to to the swamp, being back in front of your home fans when they get a little Tom Petty bumping in the swamp. Maybe
Oh,
they'll
they
that'll get
will.
them going for sure after the third quarter, get the people yelling. But, I really feel bad for Billy Napier. I've said that for a while. I do think he's a good coach. I just think that sometimes his in-game management is not the best. But I was really high on the Billy Napier train out of Louisiana, where he was coaching the Raging Cajuns to multiple, 10-win seasons, bowl game appearances when they weren't supposed to be. I really do think he was a solid coach. He seems like a nice guy. But, when I look at this coaching job this year and look at how this offense has struggled yet again with all of that hype,
Yes.
it starts at the
And
top.
remember, he came in as the whole bill, because I remember when Napier got hired, the whole bill with Napier was he's a damn good recruiter and he's going to build your program from the bottom up, and he's an offensive guru.
Exactly.
His schematic, every coach has a schematic side of the football that they prefer. He's an offensive guy. And the problem is the offense. And so that is going to be a red flag to a lot of people there. But to defend Billy, they were very, and I know this for a fact based on reporting I had to do for Kevin Robbins' class. Shout out Kevin Robbins, Professor Kevin Robbins at the University of Texas. Based on reporting I had to do, they were very late to NIL compared to the other players in the SEC. Very late. And part of the reason Urban left is he saw that those facilities were getting outdated. So they had outdated facilities, just got those done, and were ready to compete. And then boom, they get hit with NIL. They're out of money. They were flat footed. And so that was just kind of bad timing on Napier's part, because now it's sort of like baseball. What is ownership, or in this case, the boosters and the collectives, willing to spend? That's going to directly affect the product you can put on the field.
I mean, for sure, that's what it's coming down to. Like, how much money do you have and what can you offer me as a recruit? Can you send me to the league? Can you put me in the position to succeed the best? If you have these facilities, they're not up to par as, say, a Texas or an Alabama, places that are like pristine and that boosters are putting a crap ton of money in, you're gonna get exposed and you're gonna feel it on the field for sure. You're gonna feel it for sure on the field on game day. That's where you have to unfortunately learn the reality. So when you look at this offense for Florida, I'm like, man, there was a time Florida was one of the more consistent teams in the SEC.
Yes.
These last few years, man, it's hard to believe what happened in that Marco Wilson
Last
shoe throw.
decade.
Yeah,
Last
and that Marco
decade,
Wilson shoe
really.
though. Yeah, it's just been
Mm.
rough to watch, and you can't believe like this team was in the SEC championship with Kyle Trask against Alabama
Yeah.
at one point, just a few years
Yeah.
ago.
With
Just wild.
with then generational tight end prospect Kyle Pitts, don't you
Ho
forget.
Tight end hopeful,
Now
future. Yeah,
future fantasy disappointment, but generational tight end prospect Kyle Pitts. Though he did score this past weekend. I don't
yeah,
know.
he could be
He could
back.
be
Who
coming
knows?
around.
This could be the turning point.
And another awesome character on that team, future Chiefs crash out Kadarius Toney, but also two touchdowns of the Super Bowl. How many people could say that?
Exactly. All right.
They had
Got a
something.
return too, right? One time. Did you
Yeah,
get a
one
punt
was
return?
yeah, he took a kickback in the
Oh
Super
my
Bowl.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then where is he now? I don't know. He could be playing for the Montreal Alouettes. I don't know, or the
And
Saskatchewan Roughriders.
the
And
Toronto Argonauts. Who
and
knows?
now just circling back to Dallas Wilson's highly touted receiver out of Tampa for Florida, because I feel like this is worth mentioning. This wasn't just, some training camp hero. He got hurt in camp. He apparently dazzled in camp, and this was after in their spring game, which I believe Texas should have a spring game, but that's a different conversation.
Oh, that's another good
In their
conversation.
spring game, Joe, 10 catches for a buck 95 and two touchdowns. So he clearly has a rapport with Lagway. We'll see how he does on Saturday. What I
Oh
wanted to
boy.
ask you though, Joe, moving to this Texas team, any unit you want, give me some keys to victory. What are you looking to see? Because you hinted earlier, you believe that they're going to win. So what are going to be the telltale signs when you're watching this in the first half? Oh, this is coming together for Texas.
Yeah, again, it's just, firstly, third down offense. Can you move the chains on third down? I said this a few weeks ago after that very poor game against UTEP. Can this team just find a way to move the chains on third down. It's gonna come. I don't think this offense is gonna be, hitting off on all cylinders, to where they don't even have to have third downs come up. So I think when those third downs come up, can you move the chains? And then after that, is for sure, it's just red zone efficiency. Can you score when you pin Florida's defense down in their own territory? Can you score there and score touchdowns, not field goals? Can you score red zone touchdowns? It's been the Achilles heel of Steve Sarkisian offenses for the last few years. We know they can air it out in the past, but now they're not airing it out as much this year to a great success because they don't have, an A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy in this receiving core. Parker Livingston can get a nice, gain, every now and then. We've seen some great players outside of Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell the past 2 years, but who's going to be the guy? Could it be DeAndre Moore who can get a nice touchdown from like 10 yards out in the red zone?
Endries, I'm telling you, Jack
Yeah.
Endries, third down security blanket. You can find him on a crosser. I would say my key, building off the third down thing, is you said, who's the guy? Who is the guy? Who is the guy? You're back in a hostile environment. Like you said, Tom Petty on the speaker. Dun, 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 dun. Who's who's the guy on third down? Who are you going to over the middle? It's 3rd and 7. You have 85,000 people screaming. Who is getting you separation on 3rd and 7? And I think it's injuries, and then maybe on the perimeter more. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it's poor timing for Arch. He's had a lot of advantages, but in his defense, 4 new offensive linemen, completely new skill group except for DeAndre Moore. That's not easy for any quarterback. Again, Joe and I are on the record. We have been very underwhelmed with Arch, especially given the competition that Texas has faced outside of Ohio State, but those aren't non-factors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sure hope that he has found his confidence back after that last victory. He had more confidence, Arch Manning did, firing the pigskin last performance. But I hope he can also get some help with the run game because good run game sets up a great pass game. So if Trey Wisner, who is what Sarkisian is saying, is progressing well in his return, hopefully he is good to go for Saturday. If he gets going, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for the offense. We saw what happened. We talked about this a few weeks ago against A&M at Kyle Field. When he's efficient, when he's a workhorse. He's a bell cow, Trey Wisner. If he gets going, yeah, I think the sky's the limit for that offense. Especially when you have your backs against the wall in your first SEC contest. Arch Manning needs a confidence boost for sure. I hope it's really not really a boost for Saturday, but I hope they can just be consistent enough that he doesn't have to do it all himself if need be. I hope his teammates can show up for him, is what I'm saying.
Well, and they got a stable of backs. Like I pitched them last week as a 3-headed monster. Now Weiser coming back to 4-headed monster. I mean, you don't have to give it to Trey Weiser, and I don't think they would coming off of injury. You don't have to give him the workload of 25 plus carries like he had in College Station. Have Weisner, who Sark will always stick with me just because I was there for the press conference, who Sark said is as tough as a Brillo pad. I'll never forget that. It's such a good analogy. You can have Weisner get 10. You can have Christian Clark get 7 or 8. You can split the workload. Baxter, another 10. There you go. You're up to almost 30 carries. You've established the run. And honestly, that's probably the way to go when Florida, like you said, has some talent that's going to be playing on Sundays in the secondary. And we've seen some badly timed footballs from Arch this year. We've seen plenty of short-armed footballs. I'm not fully convinced that his mechanics are back to where they should be. So I agree, Joe. The run game will have to be established. And you know what that also sets up? The read option in the RPO game, which is huge when you have a mobile quarterback like Manning.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not gonna lie to you, they've been running him a little more than I expected this year.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just crazy. I didn't think they'd put him in harm's way like they have so far this year, especially in the Ohio State game. I guess that makes more sense because, the run game wasn't that effective against Ohio State. and so they try to, pull out, Arch Manning. But I think that, he's been so effective in the red zone, Arch Manning, with his legs when he couldn't, get a good pass off, from 10 and below for a touchdown that they decide to let him run it by himself. And that was his role a lot last year, getting checked in for Quinn Ewers, especially when his ankle was hurt, bringing Arch Manning to get a nice little short yardage carry. And they've really been holding on to that. They know that he can use his legs. He has tree trunk quads. He's a big guy, 6'4", 230, I believe. So I hope that they can still depend on his legs, but not too much because I don't know if you have too much behind you to look forward to if Arch Manning is, knocked out. So I hope they can be conservative with it. Don't push him too hard, on design QB runs. But for sure, the read option is a play when you have a good run game.
I mean, I will say Matthew Caldwell, Gardner Webb transfer, had himself a little scamper. I'm not sure if we talked about that against UTSA. What
Yeah,
was
he
that?
did have some.
55 yards? I was like,
He was moving.
okay.
He was moving. I'll give
Yeah.
it to him.
But
Yeah.
that would be a giant. I mean, we talk about the step up for Arch, first SEC start on the road. If Caldwell got thrown into that, God bless. Like you couldn't reasonably expect much from him there. So Joe, early on, we're looking for an established running game. What are you looking for? I know they haven't left too much to be desired. What are you looking for this defensive side of the football for them to build on the largely great work they've done throughout this year?
I wish I had more direct stats for this defense, but I don't know if they get a crazy amount of sacks against FBS D1 opponents. Um, I mean, I know they could find a way to get pressures for sure against, Sam Houston. I mean, poor Sam Houston, but
Yeah.
they didn't
Thanks
finish
for
off.
playing.
They don't take down Julian Sand, I believe, a lot of times. I wish I had the sack numbers on that, but finishing plays off for sure is a big thing. Now, sacks don't guarantee wins at all. They don't guarantee that your defense is playing actually elite, actually. But there's some teams that get high sacks and their third down defense is very poor. But it is a good measurement for sure about, where you stand because third and long is way better than, third and short, third and medium. So if you can get in those situations, find a way to get more TFLs, get more sacks. I think that's what you look for with a running threat like DJ Lagway, who was back a little bit more healthy than he was 3 weeks ago. So I think I'm looking for sure at pressures and sacks.
I would say that too. It helps in any football game. You can throw the best quarterbacks off their game with pressure, especially if it comes from that interior of the defensive line, which makes someone like Aaron Donald, just so valuable to your football team. I mean, you look at Mahomes and Brady, worst Super Bowl performances they've had. What happened? Internal pressure. The guards and the center got beat in the interior of the line. They can't step up in the pocket. And whether the quarterback's mobile or not, and Lagway is, that's going to be important. Mine's related to that. They have to keep contained. Make DJ Lagway beat your very good back end throwing the football. If he does that, you can live with that because, frankly, he hasn't shown that this year. He just hasn't. Timing has been off with his receivers. Yes, he's getting a receiver back, but you don't know what the chemistry is going to be there. And so that is what you're going to have to do. I don't want to see Lagway being able to keep it on his own read for 8 yards. I don't want to see him be able to scramble on third and short and pick it up, even if that means you have to designate a spy on him. Keep contained. You're looking at the likes of Colin Simmons on that line. Other defensive ends on that line, more. Keep contained. Don't be running up the field immediately because Lagway has some legs.
Yeah, for sure. Not running past the heel line is what they teach a lot of edge rushers. When you go past the heel line, you make an avenue for the quarterback to step up and take off and use his legs up the middle. So keeping contained, if you have him in the pocket, making sure you don't go too past the tackles, or if you're in the interior, not going too past the guards, making sure that he's stuck in the pocket, and then hopefully the pocket can collapse and you can finally take him down. So for sure, it matters how you pressure him too, besides just getting pressure. If you pressure I know Pete Kwiatkowski is very creative with the way he does his pressure for sure. I trust him in that avenue, but it's up to the guys if they can finish Blagway off and not allow him to escape and not allow the and now allow him to really escape and keep building off extending plays because your back end guys can't cover for all day. They can't cover for all day. It comes down to the front seven sometimes. It's easy for a receiver to get open if your guy is scrambling for 8 to 9 seconds. So it's just about pressure and finishing off plays to me. We basically have the same kind of idea.
Absolutely. Also, to your sacks point, I've pulled up the numbers. 11 sacks on the year for this Longhorn defense. 10 players have a sack, so at least a lot of guys are eating. Your two sack leaders at a sack and a half each are Colin Simmons, which honestly, given the opponents Texas has played, you'd want more than a sack and a half at this
Exactly.
point of the
I knew it
year.
wasn't a lot. I knew it wasn't a lot for some of these
And
guys.
then how about we talked about the interior of the line? How about big Murad Watson, 6'3", 313? He got himself a sack and a half so far this year, along with two solo tackles. The sophomore out of Irvington, New Jersey. And I've driven through Jersey many times. I don't know where that is, but good job, Murad. That's Murad with two A's, by the way. Leona Lafau has a sack this year. Won't name them all. Trey Moore, as I mentioned, also has a sack this year. But without a sack, though, 11 total tackles. Ethan Burke still hunting that first
Hmm.
sack. We'll see,
Hmm.
because he's lined up much more on the line as a rusher than he is stood up in any way, I feel like. Not that he isn't in zone, but at least from what I see. Like he's usually a pass rush guy.
Yeah, for sure. A much different style that he's playing this year. Oh my gosh, the Dodgers. I'm sorry, I just got distracted. More homers,
Wow.
more Jimmy Jacks.
I saw the Otani homer. We're about to go live earlier, and now, wow. And they
But
just
yeah.
cut to Rob Lowe in the crowd. 5-0 Dodgers. All
Yeah,
right.
Ethan Burke for sure is um, not having a sack by now is a little bit surprising, but I feel like you can look at it like how I did briefly of about like how they don't have a crazy amount of production out of Colin Simmons, or you can look at it as well. This is a very team-oriented defense. They don't
Yes,
let up a
yes.
lot of yards or points. And, there's different ways you can look at that. Maybe you thought Colin Simmons was going to be looking much better as an SEC DPOI favorite. I think he's just part of this great system, this great collective of athletes in this defense where maybe he's not valuing that as much. Maybe it's just about him doing his role, not letting, any defender get past him, providing pressure where he needs. I think, as a defensive unit, they're still just the very best in the nation, and I think that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Well, and also, in a way, I think that could benefit Simmons as he looks to the future. Because when you're a recruit of Colin Simmons' caliber, consensus 5-star coming out of Duncanville High School in the DFW area, when a coach walks into your living room, if that still happens, I'm not sure. Maybe they just show up with a bag of cash now and it's on Zoom. I don't know. But when a coach walks into your living room, the main pitch is not just what money can you get me? What's my role? How are you going to get me ready to play on Sundays? Because Colin Simmons and recruits of that caliber are looking to play on Sundays. And so, you know what I bet Pete Kwiatkowski told him? If you show these teams, because you have the physical traits, everybody acknowledges that your get off time is great. You're fast. You are an amazing physical specimen. You're an amazing athlete. You will get a pick based on that alone. But the question is, are you going to be a first rounder because you played within my system and showed teams that you can do that? Or could you potentially fall because you're chasing individual stats? And so I feel like that's a signification of the good culture that Sark is building here in Austin, that these recruits are realizing if I play within the system and pay my dues, I'm going to end up a first rounder, second rounder, and I'm going to be able to secure generational wealth for my family.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, man. It's about the culture. We've seen this in the Del Conte era and also the Steve Sarkisian era, where they're really trying to build an identity of that's more team oriented. And you saw that still rubs a little bit of Texas fans the wrong way. What Matt Campbell was saying after he defeated Texas and Austin a few years ago. We have a five-star culture, and that's better than having five-star talent.
Yes, it
And
is.
that stung. That stung for me as a young Texas fan. It stung for a lot of Texas lifers out there that maybe agreed with him as well. But if you have a five-star culture where Steve Sarkisian has tried to cultivate for sure in the 40 acres, you have, situations like you have with this defensive unit where if you have a five-star recruit, he'll sacrifice some stats for the betterment of the team.
And speaking of a team, as we look around the SEC for who, if everything goes right, the Longhorns may play in Atlanta or who will be in contention for the playoff. Ole Miss sits atop the standings at 3-0 in conference play. Rebels got a big win, but I bring this up because Lane Kiffin, of all people, talked about the same thing. I saw him on the Pat McAfee show, kind of promoting the documentary that just came out. I've yet to watch it, but he said it all changed for him when he realized that he needs to be out for more than just himself, that he can honestly tell his players, I'm doing this to help you play on Sundays. I'm going to do that. He tell a recruit, I'm doing this to help develop you as a player. It's not just who am I going to bring in to help me win, the old coach adage. It's how am I going to develop you as a football player and as a man? And he said that changed a lot of things for him. And I think you're starting to see the proof in the pudding there in Oxford.
Top five Ole Miss Rebels. I mean, how many times have we said
Wow.
that in our lives? It's crazy what this man is doing
Well, they
in
were cheating.
Oxford,
Only other the
Mississippi.
time that we saw that they were cheating with Hugh Freeze. Yeah.
Unreal what's going on right now in Oxford. What a fun watch that was going against the Tigers and Brian Kelly. Great victory. But you said it right. I mean, a lot of guys are gonna have to uh, understand that when it comes to NIL today, it's a new era, but you can't just be out for the money now. What can you offer to a player that will make him really value your program? It's not just about the dollar bills for some guys, but I do think that it's about what you can offer for them, what you can do for them, and also what they can do for your program. Besides, showing off the high school highlights, but how does your game translate to my program? It's gonna be, up and center now with NIL. So I think that's a very good difference in college football that's coming up ahead of us.
And now, with time coming down on our 40-minute Zoom limit, it is time for predictions, Joe. Just over a minute left. I'll let you go first. Who you got as the Horns travel to the swamp? And by what score?
I'll go Texas, uh, 30, Florida, 17.
Wow, a 30 spot for the Longhorns. Joe is more confident in this Texas unit than I, though I think the running game will get it going. I'm going to say an absolute slugfest. Horns don't cover, but do pull it out 21-17, Texas. And that'll do it for episode 3 of the Hump Day Huddle podcast on the Horns Illustrated YouTube channel. Be sure to check out Joe's Twitter below. Be sure to check out my Twitter below. Check out our other stuff that we're doing and have a great football Saturday, everybody.